What up, my Ace Boone Coons? Today we have a juicy one. So juicy, eye rolling juicy. Oh my god, it is so damn dark. Bayer drugs, guys. Let me show you what Bayer drugs I am talking about. You will never forget this after this episode of Alo Bien Current Events. These mother flowers need to be exposed for the evil they have committed. I cannot believe these people are still in business. Not even a name change. These people are just splat right blatantly in your face with the shit they did. They knew their pills had the HIV virus tainted in them, and they still sold it. They kept on selling it. They got lawsuits for it here in the States after infecting thousands of people, but they had a stockpile of these drugs left. Do you know what they did with these drugs? Do you think they threw out that stockpile? Hell no. They sent it to Europe and South America so other people over there could get infected with HIV/AIDS. Sounds crazy, right? We about to deep dive into this, boy. This Bayer drugs. Check it out. This Bayer drugs, ladies and gentlemen. Yep. You'll never forget the name after this episode. So Bayer AG is a German multinational pharmaceutical and biotechnology company and is one of the largest pharmaceutical companies and biomedical companies in the world. German. Okay? Mind you, I think the Nazis changed their name to Bayer drugs or something, because if this ain't population control, I don't know what the fuck is, dude. We're going to set it off with this video here, and we will dive deeper. Trust.
Welcome to the show. We appreciate you being on tonight.
Thanks for the invitation, Joe.
Okay, let's talk about the rat of the week. Why is Bayer Corporation the rat of the week?
Internal documents show that after this company positively, absolutely knew that they had a medication that was infected with the AIDS virus, they took the product off the market in the U.S. and then they dumped it in France, Europe, Asia, and Latin America. The medicine's called Factor VIII. It was an injection medicine that was used for hemophiliacs, mostly children. Children had been born with an incurable disease.
Hold on, Mike. So, hold on. So you're telling me that Bayer knew that this drug was infected with the AIDS virus. They yanked it from the market in America, and then they dumped it in markets overseas?
They had to figure out a way, Joe, to make a profit on a product that they could not sell in America. So they made a huge profit. They dropped the product in Japan, Spain, and France. By the way, Joe, government officials in France that allowed that to happen actually had to go to prison for it. In America, not one corporate executive for this company has been indicted or even criminally investigated by our Justice Department.
Why not? You're telling me that these people that dumped this AIDS-tainted blood in foreign countries, who killed children, have not been taken to task in the United States?
It's worse than that. The U.S. government allowed it to happen. The FDA allowed this to happen. And now the government is completely looking the other way. Thousands of innocent hemophiliacs have died from the AIDS virus. And not only they're dying, their family members are dying because they're becoming infected with the disease.
What do you think about that? Oh, it gets deeper. This is going to get saucy. Wait a minute, and I'm a little surprised. That's MSNBC, back when they actually did real news. Let's go. Let's go. You with me? How juicy is this going to get? How juicy? Let me give you a brief history of Bayer drugs.
And so if we take a little walk through history, you'll see time and time again how this has happened. So I'm going to jump way back first. Okay. There was a small little company that reached out to the Third Reich and said, hey, we need 150 participants for our clinical trial. The Nazi regime shipped 150 healthy Jewish women to this pharmaceutical company to test its products. Literally, within 6 months, there's letters back to the Third Reich from this pharmaceutical company saying, thank you so much for your cooperation. The women arrived in great health and working order. Unfortunately, none of them made it through the initial phases of our trial. They killed 150 women. We kindly request that you send us another 150 women. That little company became Bayer. which is now a mega pharmaceutical company. And I
Holy
say that
shit.
because it would have changed by now. That was forever ago, right? The world's a different place. We would never allow that today. Jump forward post World War II. I talked about this on RFK's podcast. Eisenhower's speech, his famous speech about the military-industrial complex. What a lot of people don't realize is there was a second half to that speech where Eisenhower warned the Americans about the medical industrial complex. He warned that if we allow private industry to control, monopolize, and profiteer off of health and healthcare, that they will silo innovation, stifle innovation, and capitalize and monetize innovation. I would argue that's 100% what we've seen, and it's continuing. And the reason I want to walk the public through this is because to understand what's going on, you've got to see the history of how it's happened. Now you jump forward to the 80s, okay? Time and time again, when Big Pharma has had an opportunity to choose left or right, over and over again, they have chose profits over patient outcomes. So 1980s, Bayer launches a hemophilia drug. They inadvertently contaminate thousands of specimens with HIV. They know that they've contaminated specimens with HIV, this drug with HIV virus. What do? They have a decision: destroy all of it or ship it to the public anyway. They shipped it into third world countries, Africa and Asian markets, and infected 20,000 people with the HIV virus.
What?
This is the 80s when it was a death sentence.
Look at this from this article. Division of the pharmaceutical company Bayer sold millions of dollars of blood clotting medicine for hemophiliacs, medicine that carried a high risk of transmitting AIDS, to Asia and Latin America in the mid-1980s while selling a new, safer product in the West, according to documents obtained by the New York Times. Holy shit.
So jump forward, they infect all these people with HIV. Okay, in the 80s, compounding pharmacies and specialty pharmacies and generic manufacturers attempted to create HIV treatment options that were affordable for third world countries. Because at the time, it was like $14,000 a month for an HIV treatment to keep you alive. Nobody could afford that in those countries. So what happens? Does Big Pharma, in a market they can't sell, in a market they can't touch, in a market where they inadvertently infected, or I would say almost knowingly infected 20,000 people with HIV, they then lobby with the U.S. government, file and sue the shit out of all of these companies that were attempting to make cost-effective generics. It caught it up in litigation for 3 years before finally they bent to the will of the American people and the feedback of the public. There was outrage over this. And finally, after 3 years of litigation, Big Pharma said, basically, screw it. Go ahead and give them the HIV, let them make these HIV meds in these countries that aren't buying our product anyway. I just say all this so you know the people we're dealing with.
Jesus, my God, this deserves justice. They're still in business. Not even a name change. Do you hear me? They didn't even bother changing their name. They paid a few lawsuits and back to business. Holy mother effing crap. Oof, my God. Just going through this over again is just, it's making me upset. I'm not gonna lie. Justice needs to be served, dude. Let me go down a brief history of Bayer drugs. Bayer drugs is known for their aspirin. That is their most iconic product that they've ever sold. Other commonly known products initially commercialized by Bayer includes heroin. Boom. Should I stop there? Phenobarbital, polyurethanes, and polycarbonates. Okay, now check out this interesting fact. In 1925, Bayer merged with 5 other German companies to form IG Farben, creating the world's largest chemical and pharmaceutical company, the first sulfonamide and the first systemically active antibacterial drug. Forerunner of antibiotics, Protanol was developed by a research team led by Gerard Domac in 1932 to 1933 at the Bayer Laboratories. Following World War II, the Allied Control Council seized IG Farben's assets because of its role in the Nazi war effort and involvement in the Holocaust, including using slave labor from concentration camps and humans for dangerous medical testing, and production of Zyklon B, a chemical used in gas chambers. In 1951, IG Farben was split into a constituent companies, and Bayer was reincorporated as Farben Bayer AG. After the war, Bayer rehired several former Nazis to high-level positions, including convicted Nazi war criminals found guilty at the IG Farben trial. The Fritzer Mir Bayer played a key role in the Wirtschaftswunder in a post-war West Germany, quickly regaining its position as one of the world's largest chemical and pharmaceutical corporations. So, in layman terms, Bayer drugs created the gas that they used in the gas chambers during the Holocaust. Oh, this gets juicier. Check this out. In 2016, Bayer merged with the American multinational Monsanto in what was the biggest acquisition by a German company to date. However, owing to the massive financial and reputational blows caused by ongoing litigation concerning Monsanto's herbicide Roundup, the deal is considered one of the worst corporate mergers in history. You think? You got two killer fucking companies. One is Bayer Drugs Pharmaceutical, and the other one is Monsanto Food and Seed Company. Bro, Monsanto, that'll be another video. But Bayer Drugs has merged with Monsanto. Bro, they are poisoning us with science, with food and pharmaceuticals, all in the name of science. And you people are buying this shit. Hell no. So Bayer's first major product was acetylsalicylic acid. Here's the original OG aspirin bottle. Heroin. Heroin, now illegal as an additive drug, was introduced as a non-addict. Heroin, now illegal as an addictive drug, was introduced as a non-addictive substitute for morphine and trademarked and marketed by Bayer from 1898 to 1910 as a cough suppressant and over-the-counter treatment for other common ailments, including pneumonia and tuberculosis. While Bayer scientists were not the first to make heroin, the company did lead the way in commercializing it. Heroin was a Bayer trademark until after World War I. Bayer's director of pharmacology did not want the drug to have too complicated a name, so Bayer settled on heroisch, the German word for heroic. Wow. Wow. Isn't this fascinating? I'm finding this way too fascinating, guys. I'm just giving you a brief history before we jump into more videos. Let's get it now. All right, so how many of you knew that pharmaceutical company Bayer was selling heroin for cough relief and claimed that it was non-addictive? It was sold between 1898 to 1924. Okay, well that's forgivable, right? We were, I guess, a lot more ignorant right before the World War. But as you know now, they kept selling and using us as guinea pigs all the way up to, I'm going to go ahead and say now. You know what I mean? I mean, the drug that was contaminating people with AIDS and the HIV it went on. The lawsuits are probably still going on today, but the actual medicine was infecting people in the 80s, 90s, all the way up to 2006, I believe. Dude, this shit is wicked, bro. This is too wicked. Here's how Bayer used to market their heroin. Yeah, I can't make this shit up. Bayer was a Nazi corporation that came over to America and kept killing people. Now, this is outrageous. I'm sure y'all know about the Roundup lawsuits that are going on. Now, apparently, I don't know how true this is, but the new Roundup is 45 times more toxic. I wouldn't doubt it. With the new formulations of Roundup, Bayer had the opportunity to make us safer, but it did the opposite. One expert said, I believe this shit. Dude, they don't stop. I mean, look at this. They are still in business after infecting people with AIDS. Come on now. You think they're going to stop? They're immune. They are above the law. So they think. This is going to take hours to read. But briefly, here's a summary of what I'm reading now. How are companies like Bayer able to literally have a list of crimes against humanity that is so long it takes hours to read about and still be a company? I urge every single person to read the link below, then ask yourself why we trust them with our food system and bodies. And people laugh at you for doubting vaccines, for doubting the World Health Organization, for doubting the CDC, for doubting our American government, people actually believe they want the best for us. Since when? Since when? They don't even fix shit like this. Come on. And I go back to one of my favorite videos I've done, the mother of all conspiracies, Agenda 21, population control. Take out the masses. Yeah, I remember the Georgia Guidestones. The first law that they want people to follow is to depopulate the world to 500 million people. How do you think they're going to do that?
Because if the EPA says it's safe, therefore it's safe, therefore you can't file a lawsuit. They tried that out in almost every lawsuit, and we won it and beat it every time. And they took it all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they lost. And they're still trying that. And now, having lost that, they're seeking this new path, which is to get legislative immunity and prevent anybody from filing lawsuits at all against Monsanto. And this is, part of their planning, and they are very strategic planners of how to prevent themselves from having exposure and having their freedom to operate limited. Their latest push is this congressional immunity in the Farm Bill. In this, they're seeking to prohibit the right to sue for failure to warn and if people are harmed by pesticides. If that were to happen, none of this information that's been that we've been able to get out in the form of the Monsanto papers, whatever.
Sick. They're really trying to fight this in court so that they can be totally immune to lawsuits. Unbelievable, bro. Mind you, Monsanto and Bayer have merged. Two of the most evilest companies on earth. Anomaly. He's that kid. He's that dude. He's been doing this for years. Respect, brother.
The drug company Bayer that merged with Monsanto recently just paid a $40 million settlement after alleged kickbacks to hospitals and physicians. As alleged in the complaints, Bayer, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, engaged in a series of unlawful acts including paying kickbacks to doctors and hospitals, marketing them off-label, and downplaying their safety risks, U.S. Attorney Philip R. Selinger said in the statement. Fascinating revelations. What do you think? Feel free to check the link in my bio, dreamrarelinks.com, to find my podcast.
The Nazis live on, dude. This is funny, but not funny. Doctor, eat your vegetables. Guys, just look how disrespectful this company is, man. Come on now.
Monsanto, now Bayer, were passing out their cancer juice all over the world, then trying to destroy the people telling everyone it causes cancer. And Bayer only stopped residential sales of Roundup herbicide this year. They bought Monsanto in 2018. 5 years to stop spraying people in the face with cancer? How is that okay? If it was revealed I was stabbing people to death, I couldn't be like, okay, I will stop stabbing because that is the right thing to do. But I won't be able to stop until 5 years from now, and I'll only stop stabbing people at residential homes. I plan to keep slaughtering folks at industrial farms. We're all cool with that, right? I'm a good person. I'm a good person.
Have you ever had aspirin, Miralax, Claritin, Alka-Seltzer, Midol, or Aleve? If you have, you've been a customer of Bayer. This massive conglomerate was responsible for countless atrocities in World War II and actually paid to be able to test their drugs on prisoners in concentration camps. And they produced the gas Zyklon B, which was used in the gas chambers. To this day, Bayer has not accounted for nor tried to make reparations for their heinous acts. What do you think Bayer should do to atone for these acts? Have you ever had aspirin, Miralax, Claritin, Alka-Seltzer, Midol?
All right, let's get personal. Let's have some real accounts, some real people that have actually been affected by Bayer drugs. It gets evil.
You've had a very front row seat to prejudice, haven't you?
Very much so.
Tell me something about that.
In my case, it was fear, and just because, you know, I supposedly had something in my body that nobody else had, or very few people had, and I think it's because you're different. I'm surprised we really have dogs nowadays because they're different. It's amazing how, you know, you can accept a dog into your house, but you can't accept someone because of their race, you know, their color or their religion, or what they have in them.
Ryan White wasn't like the other kids. That much became apparent on his first day of life, December 6, 1971. When Ryan was circumcised as a newborn baby, he could not stop bleeding. The doctors ran some tests, and a few days later, Ryan White was diagnosed with hemophilia, a hereditary disorder that prevents blood from clotting. Even minor injuries like small cuts and scrapes can lead to severe blood loss, but the greater concern for hemophiliacs is internal bleeding, which over time can lead to damaged organs and joints.
Today, we know hemophilia is caused by an inactive or inadequate supply of certain blood clotting proteins. Most often, it's hereditary, passed from mother to son. But in a third of all cases, there is no family history. Hemophilia can strike out of the blue.
There is no cure. Hemophilia was something that Ryan White and his family would have to learn to manage. And despite his condition, Ryan was able to live a fairly normal childhood, mostly thanks to being extra careful on the playground, as well as new medication that allowed hemophiliacs to treat themselves at home. Every week, Ryan's mother, Jeannie, would inject her son with Factor VIII concentrate, a product created from the pooled plasma of as many as 20,000 different blood donors. This weekly infusion contained the ingredient that hemophiliacs lacked for sufficient clotting. Factor VIII could stop bleeding or prevent it from even starting. This treatment had become increasingly common among hemophiliacs during the 1970s. It had given those afflicted an entirely new lease on life. Before Factor VIII, hemophiliacs existed in a state of constant pain and emergency room visits. They were often relegated to crutches, wheelchairs, and lengthy hospital stays when the bleeding would occur. Others were permanently disabled from the relentless pressure on their joints, but not anymore. Factor VIII was a lifesaver, and it was widely accepted by hemophiliacs with open arms and open veins.
People with hemophilia would have to go to an emergency room, probably wait several hours in order to get an infusion of blood, frequently whole blood, sometimes plasma. In the meantime, they would wait, they'd have a painful joint bleed or something like that. So it was very inconvenient, very inefficient. Many times they would just stay at home and suffer through the pain.
However, as much of a miracle drug as it may have been, Factor VIII concentrate did not treat pneumonia, which is what 13-year-old Ryan White was admitted to the hospital with on December 17, 1984. And after a biopsy on his lungs, doctors discovered something else extremely alarming. Ryan's T-cell count had dropped to 25. The T-cell count of a healthy individual could be as high as 1,200. This meant that Ryan's immune system was practically non-existent. After further tests a few days later, doctors confirmed that Ryan White had been compromised by a new virus. He had developed acquired immune deficiency syndrome, more commonly referred to as AIDS. This is Ryan's mother, Jeannie.
From the very first, he asked me, am I going to die? And this was when he was first diagnosed. He said, am I going to die? And I thought, gosh, how am I going to answer this? And I said, we're all going to die someday. We just don't know when.
Little was known about HIV and AIDS in the early 1980s, when the mysterious illness was quickly growing to epidemic proportions. Experts couldn't quite yet explain what was causing some people's immune systems to stop functioning, but there were some trends emerging. Medical professionals had found that the virus was spreading mainly throughout 4 different groups of people. 1. Homosexuals. 2. Intravenous drug users. 3. Haitians. And 4. Hemophiliacs. Hemophiliacs like Ryan White. Hemophiliacs were being diagnosed with HIV at an alarming rate because the plasma they injected on a weekly basis had not been screened for the newly discovered virus. In fact, the test for the virus didn't even exist at the time, and it only took 1 infected donor out of the pool of 20,000 to taint the whole batch of Factor VIII, a tainted batch that was then bottled and sold and injected into the bodies of hemophiliacs like Ryan White.
Well, we didn't realize that the drug that we thought was saving their life, all hemophiliacs really at the time, was the drug that ended up taking their life because it contained the HIV virus, but we didn't know it at the time.
Guess who made it?
Ryan White was given 3 to 6 months to live, but that time came and went and his condition improved. Ryan had fought hard and won, and once he was back on his feet, Ryan wanted nothing more than to return to a life of normalcy, to forget about his conditions, to forget about dying. Ryan White just wanted to be a kid again.
When Ryan was diagnosed, they only gave him 3 to 6 months to live. So at that time, I thought every cough, every fever, I was worried about whether it was going to be the last. And I really didn't think he'd ever be healthy enough to go to school. But as he started getting healthy and he started gaining his weight, he started asking Mom. He said, Mom, I want to go to school. He said, I want to go visit my friends. I want to see my friends.
Ryan White wanted to go to school, and his doctors cleared him to return. Even in early 1985, it was common knowledge that HIV was not an airborne disease. HIV is transmitted through bodily fluids, so Ryan White posed very little risk to the students, faculty, and parents of Western Middle School in Russiaville, Indiana. But the students, faculty, and parents of Western Middle School disagreed and were not very welcoming.
I don't think he should be here. If people with chickenpox and measles can't come, why should he? There's been a lot of rumors that when he gets mad, he spits on people.
You guarantee that my daughter will not get AIDS by helping him. If you can't, then he shouldn't be in school.
I don't want to take the chance of my child being right next to him and maybe accidentally being sneezed on.
More than 100 parents and 50 teachers signed a petition to formally ban Ryan White from the school and threatened a civil lawsuit if he were readmitted. And they got their wish. Ryan's formal request to attend school in person was denied by the superintendent.
That's fucking sad. Now imagine that story right there times 30,000, probably more, bro. That 20 to 30,000 is what we know of. It's probably a lot more. Now, I admit we were a lot more ignorant on educating ourselves to the HIV/AIDS virus back in the days. But we're a lot more informed now. And so is Bayer Drugs, which this video, let's not lose focus, is on Bayer and Monsanto corporations. We were a little bit more ignorant, but these people stayed ignorant. Are we guinea pigs? Do you trust this COVID shit that they're giving? This is why I didn't trust it. I don't trust the medical system these days, dude. I don't. There is something very nefarious. I'm saying, like, this is the most evil shit I've ever heard of. Somebody of this magnitude, of this size, creates a problem of this magnitude, of this size, and is not held accountable and is free. They are still in business. Please, someone help me understand this shit. I have a barbershop. If I cut someone's ear off, dude, that is the end of me. If an accident happens in here, bro, I am done. You know what I mean? How are you still in business, Bayer Drugs? Who are you working with? Why is the government? Why do 99% of people don't know about this story? I guarantee you. Drop it in the comments. How many of you knew this story, that Bayer Drugs was infecting people with HIV knowingly, intentionally, and then had a stockpile of this shit after they were sued and just sold it in Europe and South America? Kept infecting people knowingly. We're going to have to do a part 2 of this. Oh, yeah, guaranteed.
Bayer AG is one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. It's been that way for quite some time. The German-based company is probably best known for introducing aspirin to the headache-plagued public in the late 1800s, but there are far more interesting and unsettling stories to be found in the company's history. For starters, Bayer is also credited with commercializing heroin at the beginning of the 20th century. The company actually invented the name heroin, sold it over the counter, and promoted it as a cough suppressant. The name is based on a German word that means heroic and strong, words that the German people would hear ad nauseum in the ensuing decades. In 1925, in order to remain competitive, Bayer, along with 5 other German chemical and pharmaceutical companies, merged into a single conglomerate megacorporation named IG Farben. And during the 1930s, IG Farben became the single largest financial donor to the political campaign of failed artist Adolf Hitler. Company executives were reportedly hesitant to show support for the Nazis, considering many of its key scientists were Jewish, including the man who invented aspirin. But ultimately, it was an investment for the future, an investment that would pay off. IG Farben became the largest profiteer of German conquest in World War II and grew to be the largest company in all of Europe, the 4th largest company in the world. One of the ways the conglomerate was able to accomplish this was by establishing an oil and rubber plant at the Auschwitz concentration camp to take advantage of slave labor. Tens of thousands of involuntary unpaid employees, a tried and true cost-saving measure. Chemical sales were also on the upswing, specifically Zyklon B, which was manufactured by an IG Farben subsidiary. Zyklon B is the cyanide-based pesticide that was used to exterminate over 1 million Jews in the gas chambers during the Holocaust. Executives of the company would later claim that they were unaware what the Nazis were doing with the chemical. They must have assumed that Hitler was fumigating a forest of citrus trees. Lawsuits filed decades later also accused IG Farben of providing toxic chemicals to Joseph Mengele, the Angel of Death, for use in the Nazis' human experiments. Mengele would find a set of identical twins and inject chemicals, bacteria, and viruses into one of the two. He'd record the results and compare it with the uninfected brother or sister control group, and then share the data with IG Farben for their use in the development of future drugs. Collaboration is key. Though IG Farben would later deny any involvement with Joseph Mengele's grotesque experiments performed at the concentration camps, they must have had better things to do, like performing grotesque experiments of their own. Correspondence between company officials and concentration camp officers contains discussions about purchasing Jewish prisoners to use them as scientific guinea pigs. A representative for the Bayer group of IG Farben even haggles over the price per head. We propose to pay no more than 170 Reichsmarks per woman, he writes. If this is acceptable to you, the women will be placed in our possession. We need some 150 women. That particular experiment was...
Alright guys, I'm sorry I'm gonna have to end it here. And just stay tuned for part 2. Part 2 is coming up. What should I title it? I got it. Bayer Drugs. You're a piece of shit. Peace, guys. God bless you. Talk to you later. Part 2. Stay tuned.